So in this particular chapter, we'll talk about the shutdown script. So the shutdown script is very straightforward. However, there are a few intricacies that you must always remember. So the shutdown script works whenever you shut down your machine or you delete your machine. And it is especially useful if you've created a preemptible virtual machine and you want to save some instance or save some data either in your storage or in any other file system. So that is a very exclusive use case for shutdown scripts. So if you're using a preemptible virtual machine and if you want to save some information, then you should always use a shutdown script. Now, there are a few things that you must remember about shutdown script. So the most important thing is if you're using an on-demand instance, then you have 90 seconds within which you need to execute your shutdown script. And if you're using a preemptible instance, you only get 30 seconds. So make sure you do not add more than what is needed in your shutdown script. So let's create an on-demand instance and let's add a shutdown script and let's see how it's done. And like previously, there are two ways in which you can do this. You can either use the shutdown script or you can use the shutdown script URL. So if you're using the shutdown script URL, you need to point to a URL that is stored in a cloud storage bucket. And if you're just using shutdown script, you can just add the shutdown script when you're creating the instance or when you're editing it. So let's use the common shutdown script. Now, an example of shutdown script URL is similar to the startup script URL, and that example, the link to that example, I will give in the description below. So you can just check that out. So for our example, let's use the shutdown script. So let's copy this and let's create an instance. So let's create an instance here and let's make it an E2 micro. And let's make this as a standard persistent disk. Let's click on select. And all I need to do is I need to go to my networking and under management, you can get the metadata. So you need to add an item here. So that this is different from the end startup script because in your startup script, if you're creating a virtual machine, you can add the script here itself. However, if you're using the shutdown script, you need to create it in a metadata. So let's click on add item and let's paste this and let's create a script. So our script is going to be very straightforward. So I'll just copy this. So what it's going to do is it's just going to copy a file into a particular bucket, and the name of the bucket is my VLC bucket. So there is a bucket present by this name, and I'm just going to copy this particular file, and this file is going to be present in the temp directory. So let's copy this and let's paste it here. And let's create our instance. Now, one thing to remember is you must always know your present working directory. So whenever you're running the shutdown script, your present working directory is the root directory. So you need to change the path to the directory that contains this particular file. So this is very important because I wasted a lot of time trying to figure this out. So you must always point it to the particular folder which contains that particular file. So this is one thing you must remember. So once you've done this, let's go into our instance. Let's log into our instance. Let's SSH into it. And let's go to the temp directory and let's add a file. So let's create a file called abc.txt. Let me save this. So let's do an ls. So you can see that there's a file by this name. And now this particular file, let's add some data into it as well. So let's do a vi. Let's insert some data. And now let's look at the script once more. So let's just verify whether the name of this particular file is abc.txt. So again, let's go to the metadata once. Yeah, so it's just gsutil cp abc.txt. Now this sudo is actually not necessary because when you're running the shutdown script, it runs as root. So you do not need to give the sudo. So that's one thing. So this is one thing that you can remove. So let's do one thing. Let's now exit or shut down this particular machine. So what I need to do is I just need to do a pseudo shutdown. Now, of course, you can do it from the console as well, but I prefer doing it from here. And let's enter. And you can see that it will exit after 30 seconds or I think around 90 seconds. And within this time, it will run the shutdown script. So let's wait for this Let's wait for this time to elapse, and after that, let's see whether our file has been added into our bucket. And once I go to my bucket, you can see that a new file has been created. So let's open this particular file. So let's open this particular URL, and you can see that it has that same random set text. So this is how you use your end script. Now, and finally, before I conclude, also make sure that your service account has enough permissions to copy your file from your virtual machine to your cloud storage bucket. So I hope this was a useful lecture, and I will see you in the next.